Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ready to explore how religion has evolved over time?
Absolutely. It's a fascinating journey.
We're going way back to when gods were more like flawed humans with superpowers.
Right. Not the perfect all-knowing deities we often think of.
From there, we'll see how these gods transformed alongside human societies.
And how things like empires and power struggles directly shaped those beliefs.
It's amazing how intertwined religion and societal development really are.
Oh, absolutely. We'll be looking at some dramatic shifts, like the transition from pantheons with loads of gods to monotheism.
Where a single god takes center stage.
Exactly.
This journey will shed light on how politics, economics, and even the desire for national identity
All left their mark on religion.
So let's start by picturing those early gods.
Okay.
Ancient Mesopotamian and Egyptian deities.
They were surprisingly relatable, not distant ethereal beings at all.
The sources describe them as having tempers,
Getting jealous.
even stooping to some pretty shady tricks.
They were essentially humans with superpowers.
Like Enki.
Oh yeah, the Mesopotamian god. Loved his wine a bit too much.
Ended up revealing secrets of civilization during one of his revelries.
Oops.
Or Inanna.
The goddess known for her sensuality.
Even helped wives conceal adultery.
Far from the paragons of virtue we often think of, right?
A far cry from the image of all-powerful, morally upright gods. So why would people worship these flawed deities? What did they see in them?
You have to understand, these early religions were vital, socially and politically.
Like how?
Consider the Mesopotamian temples. They were centers for social services.
Linking religion and power directly.
Yes, religion was a tool in many ways for order and control.
To ensure society stuck together.
Exactly.
So it's like an ancient precursor to the church-state industrial complex. Religion gets all tangled up with politics and economics.
You could say that.
But the sources suggest this entanglement might have inadvertently pushed religion towards more enlightened moral concepts.
That's the fascinating part. As societies got more complex, more interconnected, the need for cooperation and stability grew.
So you needed everyone on the same page.
Exactly. And this led to religious ideas that embraced universalism and tolerance, reflecting these changing power dynamics.
This idea that a more harmonious society benefits everyone.
Right.
The sources bring up the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten.
Yes.
He championed the worship of Aten as the sole god. Could this be considered an early instance of monotheism, fueled by this sense of cosmopolitanism?
Akhenaten's reign is a fascinating case study. Elevating Aten as a universal god likely mirrored the nature of his empire.
Which was
cosmopolitan. It encompassed so many different cultures and territories.
Showing how political and economic forces can really shape religious beliefs.
Absolutely. Sometimes pushing them in unexpected directions.
But even with this shift towards a universal god, was there really more tolerance? Or did intolerance still rear its head?
Well, Akhenaten might have promoted a single god, but he wasn't exactly tolerant of other deities.
He was.
Oh, no. He went as far as erasing their names from monuments.
Wow.
It shows the journey towards religious tolerance was bumpy. Power struggles and the desire for control were still there.
Entwined with those religious beliefs.
Tightly.
Now let's turn to Yahweh, the God of the Israelites.
Okay.
The sources describe him evolving from a storm god, similar to the Canaanite Baal, into a more abstract and morally focused deity. What caused this transformation?
Yahweh's evolution shows how a god's image can change with the society that worships him.
In what way?
Early depictions show him riding a chariot, wielding lightning bolts, classic storm god imagery
Powerful forces of nature.
that commanded both awe and fear.
We see this vividly in that biblical story. Elijah's contest with the prophets of Baal.
Oh,
Yahweh's triumph over Baal. It's shown as a demonstration of power over nature.
solidifying his dominance.
But it also shows how these religious narratives were used strategically
How so?
to assert authority.
And legitimize existing power structures.
Exactly. As the Israelites transitioned from a tribal society to a more centralized kingdom, Yahweh's character shifted too.
He did. He became less about natural phenomena and more concerned with moral laws and ethical behavior,
Reflecting that growing complexity of Israelite society.
and their need for a cohesive moral framework.
So this shift toward monotheism in ancient Israel, with Yahweh as the sole God, was it purely religious, or were there political motivations?
It's tough to separate the two completely.
What do you mean?
The move toward monotheism, with Yahweh as the only God to worship, it happened alongside a desire for a distinct national identity
To set themselves apart.
from neighboring cultures. resist assimilation or outside influence.
But it seems this quest for a distinct national identity has a darker side. The sources mention the Deuteronomistic Code,
Right.
advocating for violence against those who follow other gods. Did this yearning for a verified national identity based on one God contribute to intolerance?
The Deuteronomistic Code definitely reminds us that the evolution of religion isn't always progress.
It's not.
It highlights how religious beliefs can be used to justify violence and exclusion in times of upheaval, when a group feels threatened.
So in this case, the drive to solidify a national identity, even one rooted in religious belief, could be used to legitimize persecuting those who didn't conform.
Unfortunately, yes.
So we see this complex interplay of social, political, and religious forces shaping Yahweh. He goes from a storm god vying for supremacy
To a more abstract, morally focused God demanding exclusive devotion.
This raises a critical question. If this move toward monotheism was driven by a desire for power, can we really consider it moral advancement?
That's a question worth pondering. Monotheism might be seen as a step towards a universal understanding of the divine, but it also opened the door to new forms of intolerance and violence.
It's like the history of religion. Like human history itself is full of contradictions, where apparent progress and regression are intertwined.
Absolutely, it's a complex tapestry.
We've explored how gods went from those flawed, relatable figures to more abstract concepts, how power and national identity shaped beliefs. But what about the human need for love, compassion, belonging? Where does that fit into this story of religious evolution?
That's where we'll pick up next time. We'll delve into how religious doctrines, despite their history of conflict, also evolved towards greater tolerance and inclusivity. Get ready for some surprising insights. Welcome back to our deep dive into the evolution of religion. Last time we were talking about those early gods.
Those flawed figures.
Grow up more like humans with superpowers. Prone to jealousy, anger, even trickery.
And we explored how those ancient states and empires really impacted religious beliefs.
Leading to that sort of church-state industrial complex.
Which, while often used to hold on to power,
could also push religion toward more enlightened moral concepts.
It's a fascinating paradox.
It is. Today we're delving into another seeming contradiction. How religious doctrines, despite all that conflict,
all the violence,
also evolve towards tolerance and inclusivity.
It's tough to wrap your head around. How could religions marked by such intolerance come to embrace something like universal love?
It's not a simple process, that's for sure. Progress rarely follows a straight line. But the sources point to a few things.
Like what?
The expansion of trade, for one. Economic interdependence.
So as trade routes connected different cultures, people interacted more.
Exactly. And they started to see the benefits of cooperation. Peaceful coexistence.
I guess.
This led to what we call non-zero-sum relationships.
Non-zero-sum.
It means those interactions weren't just about winning and losing. Cooperation and exchange could actually benefit everyone.
So it wasn't a zero-sum game.
Right. And this growing awareness really impacted religious thinking.
The sources bring up the Book of Ruth as an example.
Oh, absolutely.
It emphasizes acceptance, compassion towards foreigners, people outside the traditional community.
The Book of Ruth is a powerful story. It challenges those old ideas of kinship. Exactly. It advocates for compassion, inclusivity, reflecting a growing awareness of our interconnectedness, which went hand in hand with all that trade and cultural exchange.
It's like expanding the circle.
It is. And of course, we can't forget the teachings of Jesus.
Advocating love for your enemies.
Radical stuff for the time.
The equality of all people before God.
His message of love and forgiveness really was a departure from the norm. It challenged those hierarchies, power structures.
And placed the emphasis on
compassion, empathy. For everyone, no matter their social standing.
Their ethnicity.
It didn't matter. And the sources talk about Paul's efforts to spread Christianity.
To everyone.
People of all ethnicities. He played a key role in promoting this inclusive vision.
But wasn't Paul also known for his, well, let's say, strong personality?
Oh, he could be fiery.
And his treatment of those who disagreed with him wasn't always gentle.
That's true. Paul was complex. Like most influential figures in history, he could be critical, yet also deeply compassionate. It shows the challenge of living up to ideals.
Even for those who preach them.
Right. Even as he spread a message of love, he didn't always embody it perfectly. It highlights that human element.
In the evolution of religion.
It's a process driven by people, with all their flaws and inconsistencies. And it reminds us that the path towards religious tolerance has never been easy.
It's been bumpy. full of twists and turns.
Even those with the best intentions can stumble. Human nature, our biases, our prejudices, they get in the way.
The sources also mention Muhammad,
Yes.
his attempts to unite the Abrahamic faiths in Medina.
His early years there were marked by a very pragmatic approach to interfaith relations.
Pragmatic.
He saw the value in a diverse, inclusive community. He understood the common ground.
Between Islam, Judaism, and Christianity.
Exactly. He wanted a society where everyone could coexist peacefully.
But didn't that relationship with the Jewish community sour eventually?
It did, unfortunately. Tensions arose, power struggles, and it led to conflict. Some Jewish groups were even expelled from Medina.
It shows how fragile that harmony can be.
Especially when politics get involved.
So it's a mixed bag. This evolution toward tolerance. Not a smooth upward trajectory. It's been a journey with both progress and setbacks.
It has, shaped by those complexities of human nature, social and political forces.
But what really drove this evolution? Was it just adapting to circumstances, or was it something more?
That's the million-dollar question. Some argued that the shift was about recognizing the power of non-zero-sum relationships.
Where everyone benefits.
Exactly. Cooperation, mutual respect, leading to advantages for all as societies became more interconnected, more interdependent.
This understanding took root.
It did. And the sources suggest that this idea, this power of non-zero-sumness, it started showing up in religious doctrines.
Promoting those ideas of universal love, compassion, inclusivity.
As paths to a better world, not just in the afterlife, but here and now.
That's a powerful concept. But this progress, it wasn't always smooth sailing, right?
Oh, definitely not.
There were obstacles.
Lots of them. Fear, prejudice, lack of trust.
Did these things hinder the full realization of those inclusive ideals?
Absolutely. Human history is full of examples. Even as religious doctrines evolved, putting those ideals into practice, well, that's much harder.
The sources point to the tension between the West and the Islamic world.
Oh, that's a prime example. A long, complex history of conflict, mistrust, misunderstanding. Overcoming those divisions takes a lot of work.
What kind of work?
Open, honest dialogue, challenging stereotypes, building bridges of understanding.
Based on mutual respect, empathy.
Exactly. It's a long process, but it's essential for a peaceful future.
The sources also talk about expanding moral imagination. What does that mean exactly?
It's the ability to see things from another person's perspective, really understand their experiences, their views, especially those who are different from us.
So it's about cultivating empathy, even for those we might consider our enemies.
It is, and that's crucial for overcoming prejudice, building trust, creating a more just and compassionate world. It's not about agreeing with everything, but it is about understanding.
So the evolution of religion can be seen as humanity's own journey towards understanding our interconnectedness, realizing that cooperation is often better than conflict.
It's a powerful idea.
But if this evolution is driven by social and cultural forces?
Does that tell us anything about God?
Exactly. Is it just about us evolving socially, intellectually? Or does it point to something more, something transcendent?
That's a question that's been around for a long time, a really profound question. Does this emphasis on love, compassion, universalism, does that suggest a moral order inherent in the universe? Or is it just us? Those are questions we'll grapple with in the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on quite a journey, exploring how religion has evolved.
We have.
From those flawed, relatable gods of the past
To the more abstract concepts we see today.
We've seen how religious doctrines, while often mixed up with power struggles and intolerance,
Right.
also showed a capacity for growth, embracing ideas like universal love.
And non-zero-sumness.
Exactly. Now, the big question, does this evolution, shaped by social and cultural forces, tell us anything about the existence of God?
The age-old debate. Faith versus reason.
The sources seem to lean towards a materialist view, that religion is mostly a product of human psychology, cultural evolution.
They do.
But they also say that the growing emphasis on love, compassion, and universalism raises some intriguing questions.
About morality. The possibility of something more.
Something beyond our material world.
Transcendent.
The author makes an interesting comparison
No.
between how physicists understand the electron
Okay.
and how theists understand God.
I see.
Both are attempts to grasp a reality beyond our immediate perception.
To make sense of something we can't fully comprehend,
Sure.
at least not yet.
So just as physicists refine their models of the electron based on new evidence,
Theists refine their concept of God based on their experiences.
their understanding of the world, the moral challenges they face,
Exactly. And the author argues that this refining process, while driven by human intellect, could also be seen as evidence for a larger purpose.
Guiding this evolution.
Perhaps this drive to refine our understanding, to seek something greater.
Could point towards a reality that's beyond our limited perspective.
That's the idea.
But couldn't you say this is just humanity becoming more morally aware? A natural result of us being more interconnected?
You could make that argument.
Realizing that cooperation is often better than conflict? Do we need a divine force to explain this progress?
It's a valid point. And the author admits there's no definite proof for God's existence.
No smoking gun.
Right. It comes down to interpretation. But he suggests that the very fact we strive for moral truth, that our idea of God evolves to include more love and compassion,
Could be a sign of something more at work.
nudging us toward a higher moral understanding.
It's a thought-provoking concept. The sources don't shy away from the dark side of religion.
The intolerance, the violence, the hypocrisy.
All done in the name of faith.
Sadly, yes. But they also highlight the capacity for growth, transformation.
Which is remarkable.
It is. It's a reminder that religion, like anything humans do, reflects both our flaws and our aspirations.
A mirror to how we understand ourselves and the world.
We see our struggles, our limitations, our potential for good and bad.
All reflected in religious thought. So what does this mean for us today? What can we take away from this exploration as we navigate this complex modern world?
The sources suggest the key lies in expanding our moral imagination. We need to cultivate empathy, understanding, across those cultural and religious divides.
Recognizing our shared humanity.
Exactly. It's bigger than our differences.
It's a hopeful message, but it's also a challenge.
It is.
It asks us to confront our own biases, step outside our comfort zones, engage with people who believe differently.
It's not easy, but the author believes it's the only way forward.
In a world that's so interconnected, facing shared challenges,
Our survival depends on it.
moving beyond those differences.
Working together. For the common good, we need to draw on those parts of religious thought that emphasize compassion, cooperation, a sense of shared humanity.
If we want to build a better future.
More just, more sustainable.
This deep dive into the evolution of religion has been incredible. It's challenged our assumptions, broadened our understanding,
Faith of belief?
and left us with a sense of both the challenges and the possibilities that lie ahead. What are your thoughts? Does this evolution point towards a higher purpose? Or is it just our human journey? Keep exploring these questions. Delve deeper into this rich tapestry of human religious experience. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.